What kind of waitress shows up with a broken hand? So clumsy? Mocking laughter filled the table as the young woman trembled, setting down the tray. The manager shook his head. Coworkers whispered insults, all believing she wouldn't last. But from the corner of the room, a man watched in silence, his gaze sharpening. Can you guess what secret this waitress was hiding? Stay with us on Thread Tales to find out. For when the undercover owner drew closer, what he discovered about the waitress with the broken hand left the entire restaurant stunned. Olivia stood there, her bandaged hand steady despite the weight of the tray. The restaurant, all gleaming chandeliers and polished wood, buzzed with the kind of crowd that paid more for a bottle of wine than most folks rent. She wore a plain, black uniform, no jewelry, no makeup, her dark hair pulled back in a tight bun. Her face was pretty, but not the kind that screamed for attention, just soft, clear eyes and a quiet set to her jaw. The customers didn't notice that. They saw the bandage, the plainness, and they judged harshly. One woman at the table, dripping in diamonds, leaned forward. "Sweetheart, maybe try a job that doesn't require two hands." Her friends snickered, sipping their cocktails. Olivia's lips tightened, but she didn't reply. She just set the plates down, one by one, with a precision that didn't match the shaking in her fingers. The moment clung to her, heavy like a weight she couldn't shake. Just 2 weeks ago, she had sat in a doctor's office, staring at an X-ray of her hand. The surgeon had been blunt. "You'll need another surgery if you keep stressing it. No heavy lifting." She nodded, knowing she couldn't afford to stop working. It's not now. Not when rent was due and her savings were gone. She'd grown up in a world where money was never a question. Private schools, chauffeurs, a family name that opened every door. But that was before. Before the falling out. Before she walked away from it all. Now here she was, balancing plates in a room full of people who looked at her like she was nothing. Her shoulders squared, and she moved to the next table, ignoring the sting of their laughter. What would you do if the world judged you without knowing your story? Hit that like button and subscribe to Thread Tales to hear more stories that hit deep. A woman in a sleek red dress, her nails painted to match, flagged Olivia down with a flick of her wrist. "Excuse me, but this fork is filthy," she said, holding it up like evidence in a trial. Her voice was loud, performative, drawing eyes from nearby tables. Olivia glanced at the forks. Potlasand reached for a new one from her apron. "I'm sorry, ma'am," she said, her tone even, offering the replacement. The woman scoffed, tossing the dirty fork onto the table with a clatter. Honestly, you would think they'd hire people who know basic hygiene. Her date, a man with a flashy watch, chuckled. "Guess that's what you get with cheap labor." Olivia's fingers paused on the new fork, her knuckles whitening. But she placed it down gently and walked away, her back straight as a rod. If this hits you, if you've ever felt that kind of judgment, that weight of being dismissed, do me a favor. Grab your phone, hit that like button, drop a comment below, and subscribe to Thread Tales. It means the world to keep sharing stories like this, stories that matter. All right, let's keep going. The restaurant was packed that night. Every table, filled with the city's elite bankers, influencers, old money types who tipped big but talked bigger. Olivia weaved through them, her bandaged hand tucked close to her side. A man in a tailored suit, his tie loosened and his voice loud, waved her over. "Hey, clumsy, you going to drop my steak or what?" His buddies laughed, one slapping the table. Olivia paused, just for a second, her eyes meeting his. "I haven't dropped anything yet, sir." Her voice was calm, steady, like she was stating a fact. The man blinked, caught off guard, but recovered with a smirk. "Yeah, well, let's keep it that way." She nodded and walked away, her steps even, her tray balanced like it weighed nothing. At the bar, a couple of servers leaned close, their whispers sharp. "She's got to be in debt or something," one said, a guy with slick back hair and a fake smile for the guests. "Look at that bandage. Probably got it fighting off some loan shark." The other, a woman with bright red lipstick, snorted. "Or her boyfriend's got a temper." They didn't see Olivia standing nearby, refilling a water pitcher. Fingers tightened on the handle, but she kept pouring, slow and steady. The manager, a wiry guy named Carl, with a permanent scowl, caught her eye. "Olivia, you spill one more thing, you're out. I don't care how short-staffed we are." She nodded, her face blank, and moved on. But her hand, the good one, brushed against her pocket where a small, worn photo was tucked away, a reminder of who she used to be. The man in the corner, the one watching, hadn't moved. He looked like any other customer, mid-30s, plain button-down, a glass of water untouched in front of him. But his eyes followed Olivia, sharp and focused. He'd been coming in for a week now, always quiet, always watching. Nobody knew he was Ethan, the owner, blending in to see how his restaurant really ran. He'd seen the way Carl barked orders, the way the staff cut corners, the way customers treated people like Olivia. And he saw her, really saw her the way she moved, careful but confident, like someone who'd been trained to stay calm under pressure. He leaned back, his fingers tapping the table, wondering what her story was. A young couple at a nearby table, both scrolling their phones between sips of champagne, didn't even look up as Olivia approached. The woman, her hair streaked with highlights, flicked her eyes toward the bandage. "Oh, wow, they're really letting anyone work here now," she said, loud enough for her boyfriend to hear. Smirked, not lifting his gaze from his screen. "Yeah, what's next?" "Hiring from the shelter?" Olivia's tray didn't waver, as she set their appetizers down, but her good hand brushed the edge of the table, lingering there for a moment. She straightened, her voice soft but clear. "Enjoy your meal." The couple didn't respond, already back to their phones. But a nearby server overheard and stifled a laugh, turning away to hide it. Olivia's face didn't change, but she adjusted her apron with a slow, deliberate tug. The night wore on, and the insults kept coming. A table of young women, all glossy hair and designer bags, giggled as Olivia approached. One of them, a blonde with a fake pout, tilted her head. "Oh, honey, that bandage is just tragic. You look like you crawled out of a ditch." The others laughed, loud enough to turn heads. Olivia set their salads down, her movements deliberate. "Anything else you need?" she asked, her voice even. The blonde smirked. "Yeah, maybe a new hand." The table erupted again and Olivia's jaw tightened, just for a moment. She turned away, but not before her eyes flicked to the blonde's purse, left carelessly open on the chair. A quick glance, nothing more, but it was enough to make Ethan sit up straighter. An older man at another table, his suit wrinkled but expensive, waved her over. He was one of the regulars, always grumbling, but never cruel. "At least you didn't spill," he said, almost like a compliment. Olivia gave him a small smile. "Thank you, sir." It was the first time she'd smiled all night, and it caught Ethan off guard. There was something real in it, something unguarded. He scribbled a note on his napkin, his handwriting tight, not clumsy, it read. He was starting to think there was more to her than anyone here realized. Halfway through the shift, a busboy dropped a stack of plates near the kitchen, the crash echoing through the dining room. All eyes turned, and a woman in a fur stole, her voice dripping with condescension, called out to Olivia, "Guess you're not the only one who can't handle the job." The table around her tittered, and a man in a pinstripe suit added, "Maybe they should start handing out helmets with the aprons." Olivia, carrying a tray of drinks, didn't stop moving, but her good hand flexed, her fingers curling briefly. She set the drinks down at another table, her motion smooth, almost too smooth. "Careful with those," she said to the guests, her tone neutral, but her eyes sharp. The laughter died down, and the woman in the fur stole shifted uncomfortably, reaching for her wine. Then it got worse. A wealthy guy, mid-40s, his face flushed from too much wine, called her over. He was loud, the kind of loud that demanded attention. "Hey, you with the busted hand?" he said, grinning at his friends. "This your big career? Move, serving us with one good arm?" Before she could answer, he reached for his glass and accidentally knocked it over. Red wine splashed across her uniform, soaking her apron. The table roared with laughter. Olivia froze, her hand trembling as she grabbed a napkin. "Oh, come on," the guy said, leaning back. "With that hand, you can't do anything right." His friends nodded, one muttering, "Pathetic." Olivia didn't flinch. She knelt, wiping the wine from the floor with quick, sharp movements. Every motion was controlled, like she'd done this 1,000 times. Ethan watched, his jaw tight. He saw the way her fingers moved fast, precise, like someone who'd been trained for more than wiping spills. When the guy tossed a few crumpled bills onto the floor, sneering, "Your tip," she didn't touch them. She stood, her eyes locking onto his. "Keep it," she said, her voice low but clear. The table went quiet. The guy's smirk faltered, and she walked away, her head high. Ethan's pen stopped moving. He'd seen that look before, that posture not from a waitress, from soldiers, operatives, people who'd been through hell and come out steady. He leaned forward, his water glass forgotten.
Oh, who was she?
He thought back to a moment years ago, standing in a briefing room, watching a young woman demonstrate a disarm move. The memory was fuzzy, but the way Olivia stood now, shoulders back, eyes cold, felt familiar. A server passing by Ethan's table dropped a napkin, and as he bent to pick it up, he noticed something on the floor, a small, folded piece of paper that had slipped from Olivia's pocket. It was crumpled, worn like it had been carried for years. He didn't touch it, but he saw her pause at the edge of the room, her eyes darting to the spot. She walked over, quick but not rushed, and scooped it up, tucking it back into her pocket. Her fingers lingered there, brushing the fabric, and for a split second, her face softened. Ethan squinted, trying to make out the edge of the paper. It looked like a photo, maybe a group shot, but she was gone before he could be sure. Carl, the manager, was waiting for her at the kitchen door. "You've embarrassed the restaurant," he snapped, his voice carrying over the hum of the dining room. "That wine spill, that's on you." Olivia's hand clenched at her side, but she didn't argue. She just nodded, her lips pressed tight. The other servers kept their distance, pretending to be busy. Nobody wanted to get caught in Carl's crosshairs. Olivia moved past him, grabbing another tray, her bandaged hand steady despite the pain she had to be feeling. Ethan watched her go, his fingers tapping faster now. Something wasn't adding up. Later, as the dinner rush slowed, a woman in a pearl necklace leaned over to her friend, her voice carrying across the room. "I bet she's faking that injury for sympathy tips," she said, her lips curling. Her friend, a man with a slick goatee, nodded. "Yeah, probably scamming disability too." Olivia was clearing a table nearby, her back to them, but her shoulders stiffened. She stacked the plates carefully, her bandaged hand moving slower. Now, like it hurt more than she let on. A glass slipped from her grip, rolling toward the edge of the table, but she caught it with her good hand, fast as a reflex. The woman in the pearls gasped, then laughed. "See? I told you she's faking." Olivia set the glass down, her face blank, and walked away, her steps a little heavier. The night took a darker turn. A group of guys, already drunk, started getting rowdy at a corner table. They were young, rich, the kind who thought money made them untouchable. One of them smashed a bottle on the floor, glass shattering across the tiles. The room went quiet for a second, then the laughter started. Carl froze, his face pale. The other servers backed away, whispering to each other. One of the guys, a big one with a shaved head, pointed at Olivia. "Hey, clumsy, clean it up," he shouted. Another shoved her as she approached, and she hit the floor hard, her bandaged hand skidding on the glass.
Ow.
The room erupted in laughter. "Useless, as expected," one of the guys said, his voice slurred. Olivia's face was blank, but her good hand curled into a fist. Then in a flash she was up. The big guy lunged at her, maybe to shove her again, but she moved faster. With one smooth motion, she grabbed his arm, twisted it behind his back, and slammed him onto the table. Plates clattered, but nothing broke. The room went dead silent. Her bandaged hand stayed at her side, useless. But her good hand held him down like iron. "Don't," she said, her voice low. The guy froze, his bravado gone. Ethan's chair scraped as he leaned forward. That move wasn't random. It was clean, practiced, the kind of thing you learned in training, military training. He'd seen it before, in a dusty gym on a base overseas. His mind raced. Could she have been in the army? The other guys at the table backed off, muttering apologies. Olivia let go, stepping back, her eyes scanning the room like she was waiting for the next threat. Carl stormed over, his face red. "What the hell was that? You're done here." She didn't answer, just straightened her apron and walked back to the kitchen. As she disappeared behind the swinging doors, a customer at a nearby table A middle-aged woman with a sharp bob and a designer scarf turned to her companion. "That girl's trouble," she said, her voice low but venomous. "You don't learn moves like that in a diner. She's probably running from something." Her companion, a man in a cashmere sweater, nodded. Explains the hand. "That she got it in a bar fight or worse." Olivia emerged from the kitchen, carrying a fresh tray, and the woman's eyes followed her, narrowing. Olivia didn't look their way, but her fingers brushed that pocket again, like a reflex, checking for the photo. The gesture was small, but Ethan caught it, his brow furrowing. The next day, the restaurant was buzzing, but not with customers. The staff was whispering, their voices low and mean. "She's got to be mixed up with gangs," one server said, wiping down a counter. "Nobody moves like that unless they're trouble." "What?" Another nodded, glancing at Olivia as she carried a stack of plates, probably why her hands messed up. Got in a fight she couldn't win. Carl caught her at the end of the shift. "I don't want trouble here," he said, his voice cold. "Quit or I'll make sure you're blacklisted." Olivia's jaw tightened, but she didn't say a word. She just grabbed her bag and walked out, her steps slow but steady.
Aye.
Ethan was there, sitting at the bar this time, his laptop open. He'd overheard everything. His fingers hovered over the keyboard, his gut telling him there was more to this. He pulled up the restaurant's employee records, digging into Olivia's file. It was thin, too thin. Just a name and address, a start date. No references, no history. He frowned, then made a call. "Run a name for me," he said, keeping his voice low. "Olivia Harper. Check military records." He hung up, his eyes on the door she'd just walked through, before the call came back. Ethan noticed a commotion near the hostess stand. A delivery guy, holding a stack of takeout bags, was arguing with Carl. "I was told to deliver this too." "Olivia Harper," the guy said, holding up an envelope tucked between the bags. Carl snatched it, his face twisting. "She's not getting special treatment," he snapped, tossing the envelope into a drawer. Olivia, wiping down a table nearby, didn't see, but Ethan did. He stood, casually walking over to the stand, and when Carl turned away, he slipped the envelope out. It was sealed, no label, but the weight of it felt important. He tucked it into his jacket, his pulse quickening. The answer came the next morning. Ethan sat in his office, a small room above. The restaurant, staring at the email? "Olivia Harper, former Army medic. Discharged 2 years ago after a mission went sideways. Her hand had been crushed, saving 3 soldiers under fire. A Medal of Valor sat in her file, along with a note, recommended for special operations, declined. Due to injury?" Ethan leaned back, his coffee cold. "She wasn't just a waitress, she was a hero, and his staff had been treating her like dirt." That evening, as Olivia worked her last shift, a new table of guests arrived. 3 men in expensive suits, their voices loud with self-importance. One of them, a broad-shouldered guy with a gold chain, snapped his fingers at her. "Hey, you with the bandage? Don't mess up my order, all right? I've got a meeting to get to." His tone was sharp, like he was scolding a child. Olivia nodded, jotting down his order with her good hand, but he kept going. "Are you even here? You're slowing everyone down." His friends laughed, and one added, "Maybe stick to washing dishes." Olivia's pen stopped moving for a second. Then she looked up, her eyes steady. "I'll get it right, sir," she said, her voice quiet but firm. The man rolled his eyes, waving her off. Half an hour later, as Olivia carried a heavy tray of drinks to another table, a server bumped into her hard. The tray tipped, and a single glass of water slid off, splashing across the floor. The room didn't go quiet, but the snickers started. A woman in a sequin dress, her lipstick too bright, leaned over to her friend. "Told you she's a liability," she said, loud enough for Olivia to hear. Carl, standing nearby, shook his head. "That's it, Olivia. You're done." She set the tray down, her bandaged hand trembling, but she didn't look at him. Instead, she knelt to clean the spill, her movements slow, like she was buying time. Ethan, watching from his table, gripped his pen so hard it nearly snapped. That night, the restaurant was busier than ever. A big event, some corporate gala, had every table filled with power players. Olivia was there, her last shift before Carl could follow through on his threat. A man in a sharp suit, his hair graying but his voice booming, stood up as she passed. "You," he said, pointing at her. "You're just society's trash. Nothing more than a servant." The room hushed, heads turning. Nodded, his arms crossed. "She's out after tonight," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. The other servers looked away, their faces blank. Olivia's hand trembled, her eyes glassy, but she didn't move. Ethan had seen enough. Stood, his chair scraping loud in the silence. He pulled off the fake name tag he'd been wearing, tossing it onto the table. "I'm Ethan Caldwell," he said, his voice steady but sharp. "I own this place." The room froze. The gray-haired man sat down fast, his face pale. Carl's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Ethan pulled the envelope from his jacket, holding it up. "This came for Olivia today. No one want to guess what's inside?" He didn't wait for an answer, tearing it open. A small medal fell out, glinting under the chandelier light. "A commendation," he said, his voice cutting through the room. "For saving lives under fire?" He pointed at Olivia. "She saved lives on a battlefield. While you," he looked at the man, then at Carl, and then at the servers hiding behind the bar, "while all you've done is mock her." He turned to Carl. "You're fired. Clear out your desk." The room stayed silent, every eye on him. Olivia stood there, her bandaged hand at her side, her face unreadable. Ethan walked over, his steps slow, and handed her the medal. "You don't have to stay," he said, his voice softer now. "But if you do, you're not just a waitress. Here, not anymore." She looked at the medal, her fingers brushing the metal, then gave a small nod. Nothing more. She didn't need to say anything. The room was already shifting, people whispering, phones coming out to record the moment. The fallout came fast. Carl was gone by morning, his name scrubbed from the restaurant's website. The gray-haired man, a hedge fund guy, got roasted online when a video of his outburst went viral. One of the servers, the one with the slicked-back hair, lost his side gig as an influencer when his sponsor saw him laughing in the background of the clip. The blonde with the designer bag. Her social circle iced her out after word spread she'd mocked a war hero. Nobody said Olivia's name in the gossip, but they didn't have to. The truth was out, and it was heavy. The next week, a regular customer, an older woman with a kind face, approached Olivia during a quiet moment. She held out a small card, her hands shaking slightly. "I saw what happened," she said, her voice soft. "My son was in the service. He didn't come back. Just wanted to say thank you." Olivia's eyes flickered and she took the card, her fingers careful. "I'm sorry about your son," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The woman nodded, tears in her eyes, and walked away. Olivia tucked the card into her pocket next to the photo and went back to work. Her steps a little lighter. Olivia kept working. Same plain uniform, same quiet way, but people noticed her now. Stepped out of her way, customers left bigger tips, some even apologizing. She didn't bask in it. She just did her job, her bandaged hand a little steadier each day. Ethan watched from his office, sometimes catching the way she moved through the chaos, calm as ever. He thought about that photo in her pocket, the one she never showed anyone. He didn't need to see it to know it mattered. One evening, as the restaurant closed, a young server, new to the team, approached Olivia hesitantly. "I heard what you did," he said, his voice nervous. "In the army? I mean my brother's? Training to be a medic? Can I ask you something?" Olivia paused, wiping down a table, and looked at him. For the first time, she didn't look guarded. "Sure," she said, setting the rag down. They talked for a few minutes, her voice low, his eyes wide with admiration. When he walked away, he stood a little taller, like her words had given him. "Something solid to hold on to?" Ethan, catching the exchange from the bar, smiled faintly. One night, weeks later, car pulled up outside the restaurant. A man stepped out, tall, broad-shouldered, his suit simple but sharp. He didn't say much, just walked in and scanned the room. When his eyes found Olivia, he He paused. The whole place seemed to hold its breath. A server dropped a fork. The clatter. Loud in the silence. The man walked over, his steps steady, and stopped in front of her. "You ready?" he asked, his voice low. She nodded, grabbing her bag. Nobody needed to say his name. They all knew he was her husband, the kind of man whose presence changed everything. The room watched as they left, her hand in his, her steps. Light, but sure. The gray-haired man, back for some reason, looked away fast. One of the servers, the red lipstick woman, froze mid-sentence. Nobody spoke. Olivia didn't look back. She didn't need to. The truth was in the air, heavy and real, and it followed her out the door. Life has a way of judging you before it knows you. It looks at your clothes, your hands, the way you stand, and it decides. Olivia walked through that, carried the weight, and kept going. She didn't need to shout her worth. It was there in every step, every quiet look. You felt that weight, haven't you? The sting of being misjudged, overlooked. You weren't wrong to keep going. You weren't alone in it. Where are you watching from? Leave a comment below and hit follow to walk with thread tales through heartbreak, betrayal, and done. Finally, healing.